The night was heavy over the Arizona desert, the kind that seemed to swallow sound. Only the low hum of cicadas filled the air outside the old Hell Angels clubhouse, a fortress of steel, wood, and memories. Inside, a single light burned in the corner office, where Tiger Martin sat alone with a bottle of bourbon and a picture frame. The photograph inside was faded with time, a younger Tiger, clean-shaven in his Marine uniform, standing beside a woman in leather with fire in her eyes and a smile that could make the world pause. Maria Ironheart Vega. He hadn't looked at that picture in years. Not since she died. Not since he failed to say goodbye. Tiger rubbed his temple, the scars along his knuckles catching the light. 52 years old, built like a granite wall, and yet there were nights when the weight of the road pressed harder than any war he'd fought. This was one of them. Then the silence broke, a buzz from the burner phone on his desk. Unknown number. Midnight. He hesitated only a second before answering. "Yeah, this is Tiger." The voice on the other end was trembling. An older woman, desperate. "Is this Tiger Martin's? The one who rode with Maria Vega?" His back straightened. "Who's asking?" "My name's Mrs. Carter. I run a diner off Highway 19. It's about her boy, Miguel. The one with the bad leg." Tiger's jaw tightened. "What about him?" The pause was long, the kind of silence that tells you the truth before the words ever come. "They threw him out," she whispered. "His uncles. Right after the funeral. Said he was worthless. I found him walking the road alone, wearing his mama's jacket. He could barely stand." Tiger rose from his chair, every muscle turning to stone. "Where is he now?" "Asleep in the diner, but he looks broken, sir. Like the whole world gave up on him." Tiger's eyes burned. "Not everyone." He hung up without another word. In the next room, the sound of metal scraped against concrete as Tiger dragged a long chest from beneath a table. Inside lay relics of another life, worn patches, rusted dog tags, and a black leather vest bearing a familiar emblem, a flaming skull with wings. Hell Angels. He ran his hand across the patch, the leather cool against his calloused palm. Maria had worn one just like it. She wasn't just part of the club, she was its heartbeat. The only woman who ever earned the name Ironheart. Tiger remembered the last time they rode together, the wind screaming through the canyon, Maria laughing as she overtook him on her Harley, her braid whipping behind her helmet. She'd yelled over the engine, "If anything ever happens to me, you take care of my boy, you hear?" He'd grinned back. A Marine never breaks a promise. Now, 16 years later, that promise was calling. Tiger stepped outside into the desert cold, the moonlight washing over rows of parked motorcycles. He lit a cigarette, exhaled, and said quietly, "Time to ride, Ironheart." Within minutes, he was on the clubhouse intercom. His voice echoed through every room. "Brothers. Patch in. We got a situation." Doors opened. Lights flickered on. Men who had been asleep for hours rose like soldiers answering a forgotten war call. When Tiger entered the meeting hall, Reaper Miles, the club's second-in-command, was already there, a giant of a man with a gray beard and tattooed arms. Reaper nodded. "What's going down?" Tiger placed Maria's photo on the table. Ironheart's boy, Miguel. His uncles threw him out of his parents' house. A low murmur rippled through the room. Everyone knew that name. Everyone knew that woman. "She was one of us," Reaper said. "Her kid's family." "Exactly," Tiger replied. "And we don't leave family on the road." He looked around the table, at the men who had followed him through wars, bar fights, and funerals. Veterans. Mechanics. Lost souls who found order in Brotherhood. "I gave her my word," Tiger continued. "Now that boy's alone, limping through the desert while his mother's brothers sit on stolen land. So I'm calling in the full patch." Reaper leaned forward. "How many you want?" "All of them," Tiger said. 77 bikes at dawn." The room came alive. Boots pounded the floor. Engines began to roar to life outside like thunder gathering over the horizon. Tiger stood at the window, watching the dust swirl under the moonlight. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. The sound alone meant everything. It meant they were coming. Inside his vest pocket, he carried a folded photo of Miguel as a baby, the one Maria had sent him years ago. A tiny boy with his mother's eyes, clutching a toy Harley. He whispered to the picture, "Hang in there, kid. Mama sent backup." Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. By dawn, the desert air was alive with noise. 77 motorcycles lined up across the horizon, headlights cutting through the early light. Tiger climbed onto his custom black Harley, the same one he'd ridden in 2 wars and across 12 states. He looked over at Reaper. "We ride light, but ride hard. That boy's not waking up in that diner alone tonight." Reaper grinned beneath his beard. "Let's go get our nephew." The engines revved, a rolling wall of power and loyalty. Dust exploded behind them as they tore down the open highway, sunlight glinting off metal and chrome. Every rider carried Maria's name stitched in red across their jackets. Ironheart forever. As they rode, Tiger could almost hear her voice in the wind, laughing, fierce, alive. She'd kept the road alive in all of them. Now it was time for them to keep her promise alive. The sun cracked open the desert sky like a flare, spilling gold over the flat horizon. The roar of 77 engines echoed across the land, a sound that made windows tremble and hearts remember. They gathered outside the Hell Angels compound, rows of bikes lined like a steel army. Every man wore the same patch, a flaming skull with wings, and beneath it, a small red inscription stitched overnight, "For Ironheart." Tiger Martin stood at the front, his black leather vest catching the dawn light, his eyes hidden behind aviator shades. He scanned his men, the veterans and old riders who'd followed him through every fight worth fighting. Some were ex-Marines like him. Some were mechanics who'd found peace only on the open road. And a few were men Maria Vega herself had recruited in her glory days. To them, this wasn't just another ride. This was payback with purpose. Tiger raised his hand, and the crowd fell silent. "Brothers, you all know why we're here. Maria Vega, Ironheart, wasn't just one of us. She was the reason half of us are still breathing. When she rode for loyalty. When she fought for family. Now her son's been thrown out by blood that forgot what the word means." The men shifted, nodding, jaws tightening. Reaper Miles stepped forward, voice booming like gravel and thunder. "Then we remind him what family really is." A cheer rippled through the group, low, powerful, like the sound of a storm building over the canyon. Tiger continued, his voice steady but sharp. "We ride for the boy. His name's Miguel. 19. Walks with a limp he got saving his mama in a crash that killed 2 drivers. He's Ironheart's son. That makes him ours. You see that boy, you see blood. You see one of us." Reaper grinned. "And what about the uncles?" Tiger's eyes darkened. "We don't raise fists unless we're defending. But if they try to take a swing..." He paused, letting the silence speak. "We swing back twice as hard." As the men roared in approval, Tiger turned toward the horizon. His thoughts drifted back 16 years, the day Maria Vega joined the Hell Angels. He could still see her that first morning, a short woman with a scar across her eyebrow, standing in front of 30 men who'd never ridden with a woman before. "You sure you can handle it?" he'd asked, testing her. She'd grinned, climbing onto her Harley. "Tiger, I handle worse before breakfast." 2 weeks later, she saved his life, pulling him out of a burning van after an ambush by a rival gang. After that, nobody ever questioned her place again. When Maria married Jack Vega, another rider, Tiger had walked her down the aisle. He'd promised her that if anything ever happened to her family, he'd take care of them. That promise now thundered beneath 77 engines. At the diner off Highway 19, Miguel stirred awake to the smell of pancakes and burnt coffee. Mrs. Carter, a silver-haired woman with tired eyes, placed a plate in front of him. "You didn't sleep much, did you?" she asked softly. Miguel shook his head. His leg throbbed from the walk, and his heart ached worse. "I keep thinking about my mom. She used to ride past here sometimes, right?" Mrs. Carter nodded. "Every Thursday. She'd sit right there by the window, order coffee black, and talk about how proud she was of you." He looked up, eyes glistening. "She did. All the time. Said you had her courage. Said you'd ride one day too." Miguel smiled faintly, a flicker of warmth in the cold. But it faded quickly. Guess she was wrong. I can barely walk. Mrs. Carter placed a gentle hand on his. Don't ever say that, son. There are riders out there who'd give anything to have your heart. He looked out the window. In the distance, a faint rumble rolled through the desert air. At first, he thought it was thunder. Then it grew louder. Mrs. Carter's lips parted. Well, I'll be. Back at the compound, the engines fired again. 77 bikers mounted their Harleys, the smell of oil and gasoline rising like incense. Reaper revved his engine, pointing east. You sure about this, boss? Tiger slid on his helmet, voice calm but unyielding. Maria once said family ain't who's born to you, it's who rides beside you. That boy's been alone long enough. Reaper grinned. Then let's go bring him home. The convoy rolled out, headlights blazing, exhaust spitting fire, dust erupting behind them. The roar filled the desert like a war cry. Drivers on the highway pulled over, cameras out, staring as the massive procession thundered past. 77 riders dressed in black and chrome, cutting through the sunrise like avenging angels. As they rode, Tiger's mind kept returning to Maria's voice. You promised me, Tiger. If anything happens to me, you take care of my boy. I'm coming, Ironheart, he whispered under his breath. We all are. Back at the diner, the sound grew closer, not thunder, not wind, but something alive. Miguel stepped outside, shielding his eyes from the glare. The horizon shimmered with motion, dozens of tiny dots growing larger, louder, brighter. Engines. Mrs. Carter smiled through her tears. Looks like your mama sent angels. Within minutes, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. 77 Hell Angels roared into the diner lot, tires screeching, exhausts growling, chrome glinting in the morning light. At the front, Tiger Martins cut the engine and removed his helmet. The years showed in his weathered face, but his eyes burned with the same fire Maria once had. He looked at the boy standing there, limping, clutching his mother's jacket, and he knew. This was her son. Tiger stepped forward, voice rough but gentle. You must be Miguel. The boy nodded, unsure what to say. Tiger placed a hand on his shoulder. Your mama was the bravest rider I ever knew. She saved my life once. Now it's my turn to save hers, through you. Miguel swallowed hard, fighting tears. You knew her. Tiger smiled faintly. Kid, she was family. Behind him, the other riders stood silent, a wall of loyalty, chrome, and leather. Tiger turned to them, voice rising above the engines. Brothers, meet Ironheart's son. The roar that followed shook the sky. That morning, Miguel didn't just meet bikers, he met family. And as the engines cooled and the dust settled, Tiger promised the boy one thing. We're riding home, kid. And this time, no one's throwing you out again. The sun burned high above the Arizona desert as the convoy of 77 Hell Angels thundered down the highway, chrome flashing, engines pounding in unison like a single iron heartbeat. The sound wasn't noise. It was purpose. Cars pulled over to the side of the road. Dust swirled in their wake as people raised phones to record the sight, an army of riders cutting through the desert like a wave of thunder. At the front, Tiger Martins led the pack, posture firm, eyes forward, the reflection of the road gleaming off his sunglasses. Just behind him, on a smaller Harley adapted with a sidecar, rode Miguel Vega, clutching the edge of the seat, wind whipping through his hair. It was the first time Miguel had been on a motorcycle since the accident. The last time, he'd been 9 years old, riding with his mother through the same desert, her laughter echoing through his helmet. She had always said, the road doesn't care how fast you ride, only that you ride with heart. Now, as the wind rushed past his face, he could almost hear her voice again. Tiger glanced back at him every few miles, a faint smile tugging at his scarred jaw. The boy's grip was firm, his eyes bright despite the limp that had defined him for so long. There was something in him, something Tiger recognized. The same fire Maria Ironheart Vega once had. Reaper rode up beside Tiger, shouting over the engine noise. Kid's tougher than he looks. Tiger nodded. He's his mama's son. Reaper chuckled. Let's hope he's got her temper too. We're gonna need it. Tiger's eyes hardened. Those uncles won't see us coming. Hours passed, the road stretching endlessly ahead. Between gas stops and diner breaks, the riders shared stories, not of violence or fame, but of Maria Vega. She once rode 30 miles on a flat tire to get a wounded soldier to safety, one said. She used to patch us up after every brawl, another laughed. Called us idiots, but she never walked away. Every tale painted a picture of the woman Miguel had only known as Mom. To these men, she was a legend, a sister of the road. Miguel listened, silent, absorbing every word. For the first time since her death, he felt like he was learning who she truly was. After lunch at a roadside diner, Tiger motioned for Miguel to ride up front with him. The boy hesitated but obeyed. When he settled behind Tiger on the main Harley, he asked quietly, "Did you really know my mom that well?" Tiger's voice was low. "I rode with her for 15 years. We fought side by side. I saw her face down men twice her size, and they still backed off. She had more courage than most of us combined." Miguel smiled faintly. She always said she wasn't afraid of anything. Tiger's grip on the handlebar tightened. She was afraid of one thing. What? Leaving you alone in this world. The boy went silent, staring at the desert rolling by. Tiger continued, his tone softer. "When your folks died in that crash, I couldn't make it to the funeral. We were in Nevada, trying to stop a turf war. I still carry that guilt. But today I'm keeping my word." By mid-afternoon, the convoy stopped at a high cliff overlooking the valley. Below lay the town of Silverton, where the Vega property stood, a cluster of ranch-style homes surrounded by rusting fences and open land. Tiger dismounted, staring at the horizon. "That's it. That's where your uncles are." Miguel stepped out of the sidecar, using his crutch to balance. "Feels strange, looking at it from up here. Used to be home." Tiger turned to him. "It still is. They just forgot whose name is on the deed." Reaper joined them, scanning the town through binoculars. 3 trucks out front. "They're drinking again. Whole place looks like a mess." Tiger's jaw set. "They treated that house like trash. She built it with her bare hands." "Boss," Reaper said cautiously, "what's the plan when we get there?" Tiger took a deep breath. "We don't start a war. We start a reckoning. They'll talk, we'll listen, and then we'll show them what justice looks like." Reaper smirked. "Understood. You gonna tell the kid?" Tiger looked at Miguel, who stood quietly by his bike. "He'll figure it out soon enough." As they rested, Miguel wandered toward a small ridge, his mind heavy. The wind tugged at his jacket, his mother's jacket, and the leather creaked softly, as if alive. He thought about the night his uncles threw him out. How Rick had laughed, how Dennis had called him dead weight, how Paul had told him to crawl away like a dog. His blood boiled just remembering it. When he turned back, Tiger was watching him. "You thinking what I think you're thinking?" Tiger asked. "I want to face them," Miguel said. "I want them to look me in the eye." Tiger nodded slowly. "You'll get your chance. But remember, strength isn't in breaking bones. It's in standing tall when they expect you to crawl." Miguel met his gaze. "I'm done crawling." Tiger smiled. "Good." As evening approached, the convoy descended from the cliff and entered Silverton. The rumble of engines filled the town, echoing between old brick buildings and gas stations. People came out onto porches, shielding their eyes from the sun, staring as 77 bikers rolled through their quiet streets. At the front, Tiger raised his hand, a silent signal. The engines slowed, the formation tightening like a marching line. They rode toward the dirt road that led to the Vega property. Behind him, Michael's heart pounded. The sight of the familiar mailbox, half-bent, still bearing his mother's name, made his throat tighten. The gates loomed ahead. The laughter of his uncles carried faintly through the open windows. Tiger stopped his bike at the edge of the yard. One by one, the others pulled in behind him, engines idling, forming a wall of chrome and thunder. The uncles stepped onto the porch, beers in hand, laughing, until they saw the patch on Tiger's back. Hell Angels. Their smiles vanished. Tiger dismounted, his boots crunching on gravel. His voice carried across the yard, calm but commanding. "Rick Vega. Dennis Vega. Paul Vega. My name's Tiger Martins. I'm here for Ironheart's boy." Silence fell. Even the wind seemed to stop. Miguel tightened his grip on his crutch. The world felt like it was holding its breath. Tiger took another step forward. You threw out her son. That ends today. The laughter that once filled the house was gone now, replaced by something else. Fear. As the engines growled behind him and Michael's heart hammered in his chest, one thing became clear: this wasn't just a ride anymore. It was Judgment Day on two wheels. And for the first time since he lost his mother, Miguel Vega felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The late afternoon sun hung low, staining the sky the color of rust and fire. The Vega property stood still in the heat, a forgotten home, its porch littered with empty beer bottles and cracked chairs. Inside, laughter once roared from family dinners. Now, it crawled out like mockery. That laughter died the moment Tiger Martins and his 77 Hell Angels rolled up the long dirt road. Engines idled, growling like beasts on leashes. Dust swirled behind the line of chrome and steel. The uncles froze on the porch, half drunk, half startled, their smiles fading into sneers. Rick Vega, the eldest, dropped his beer can and stepped forward, squinting against the glare. Who the hell are you supposed to be? Tiger removed his sunglasses slowly, his expression carved in calm steel. Name's Tiger Martins. You threw out a kid who doesn't belong to the street. Rick's lip curled. You mean that cripple? He got what was coming. Should have been his daddy in that crash, not my sister. A muscle in Tiger's jaw twitched, but his tone stayed quiet, too quiet. You got two choices, Rick. You hand over the boys' things and the house his mother built, or I let my brothers explain how we handle men who spit on the dead. The second uncle, Dennis, laughed nervously. You think we're scared of a bunch of washed-up bikers? We own this property now. Got the papers to prove it. Reaper Miles stepped forward from the formation, a mountain of a man with gray hair and fists like stone. Funny, he growled, 'cause we got papers too, signed and sealed by Ironheart Vega herself. Rick faltered. You lying. Reaper tossed a folded document onto the porch. It landed at Rick's boots. That's the original will. The one you tried to bury. Rick's eyes darted down. His smirk wavered. Tiger's voice hardened. You forged signatures. You sold her tools, her bike, even her father's war medals. You think no one would find out. Dennis barked back, you can't prove. Already did, Tiger interrupted. He nodded toward a black Harley where a woman dismounted, pulling off her helmet. She was tall, sharp-eyed, wearing a leather vest that read Hell Angel Legal Division. Meet Darla Knox, Tiger said. Lawyer, and Maria Vega's goddaughter. She's been digging through your lies for months. Darla opened a folder, her voice cold and clear. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. Real estate fraud. Probate forgery. You three are finished. Rick's hands began to shake. You think you can just ride in here and take over? Tiger's eyes met his, unwavering. I don't take. I return what was stolen. Behind him, the engines revved, 77 bikers standing silent but ready, like iron statues waiting for a command. Rick's temper snapped. He spat on the ground. You think you scare me, old man? Tiger stepped closer, boots crunching over the gravel. You're not scared yet, he said softly. But you will be. From behind Tiger, Miguel limped forward, crutch pressing into the dirt. His mother's jacket hung loose around his shoulders, and his face was pale but determined. Stop, he said, voice trembling but strong. All eyes turned to him. Rick snorted. Look who crawled back. Michael's eyes glistened. You threw me out of my home. You were never fit to keep it. I was her son. Rick laughed bitterly. You? You're nothing but a reminder of her mistakes. Tiger's head turned sharply. Watch your mouth. But Miguel raised a hand. No, let him talk. He took a step closer, limping, but not stopping. You said I'd never amount to anything. That I was a burden. But the truth is, you were jealous. Mom worked harder, rode stronger, and lived freer than any of you ever did. And it eats you alive. Rick's face reddened, his fists tightening. You don't talk to me like that. Why? Miguel shot back. Because I'm crippled? Because I remind you of her. He jabbed his crutch into the dirt. You called her reckless. But she built this house from nothing while you were too busy drinking away your lives. You hated her because she had a purpose. Tiger stood motionless behind him, pride flickering in his eyes. Michael's voice cracked but didn't falter. She told me something once. She said, "Son, when people can't match your strength, they'll try to break your spirit." You tried to break me. But I'm still standing. For the first time, Rick took a step back. Then came the sound, distant sirens growing louder. The sheriff's cruisers rolled up the dusty road, lights flashing red and blue. The local sheriff, Deputy Collins, stepped out, hand on his belt. He looked from Tiger to the uncles, trying to piece it all together. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Tiger handed him the document folder. Legal claim to the property. Fraud. Theft. Abuse of a dependent. Collins flipped through the papers, eyebrows lifting. "You boys got yourself in deep," he said to the uncles. Rick tried to protest. "You don't understand." "I understand enough," the sheriff cut in. "You three forged signatures and stole inheritance from a minor. That's a felony." As the deputies moved in, Rick lunged suddenly, grabbing a wrench from the porch railing and swinging it toward Tiger. The motion was fast, desperate, but Tiger was faster. He caught the wrench mid-swing, twisting it from Rick's hand in one smooth motion. The metallic clang echoed through the air. Tiger's voice stayed calm. "Don't ever raise your hand again. Not to me. Not to him. Not to anyone weaker than you." He tossed the wrench into the dirt. Rick stumbled backward, breathing hard. The deputies grabbed him by the arms, shoving him toward the patrol car. Dennis and Paul followed, cursing and shouting, but no one was listening anymore. The only sound was the hum of engines idling in unity. Miguel watched as the police drove his uncles away, dust rising in their wake. His chest felt heavy, not with victory, but with release, like the end of a storm he'd survived without realizing how long it had raged. Tiger stepped beside him. "You did good, kid." Miguel shook his head. "I just told the truth. That's the hardest thing to tell when no one wants to hear it." He looked at Tiger, eyes glimmering in the fading light. "They won't come back, will they?" Tiger smiled faintly. "Not while 77 engines stand between you and them." As the sun dipped behind the hills, the Hell Angels spread out around the property. Some cleared the trash, others fixed the broken fence. The sound of hammering, laughter, and engines replaced years of silence. The Vega house was alive again. And for the first time since Maria Ironheart Vega died, her son stood on the porch, not as a victim, but as the rightful heir to her legacy. That night, when the stars rose over the desert, Tiger handed Miguel a small worn key. "This was your mom's garage," he said. "She wanted you to have it when you were ready." Miguel turned the key in his palm. "I think I'm ready now." Tiger nodded. "Then tomorrow we ride home, the way she would have wanted." The desert had a strange silence after justice, a heavy quiet, like the land itself was still listening. By dawn, the Vega property looked different. Not new, but alive. Bikers worked through the morning, fixing the broken porch, repainting the gate, hammering the rusted hinges that had once cried like ghosts in the wind. The Hell Angels had turned the house of betrayal into a place of brotherhood. Inside, Miguel Vega sat at the old oak table that once belonged to his mother. The smell of motor oil and coffee filled the air. Tiger Martin stood nearby, sorting through a stack of old documents. The sheriff had left hours ago, taking the uncles into custody, but something about the night's events still didn't sit right with Tiger. "Something's missing," he muttered. Miguel looked up. "What do you mean?" Tiger spread the papers across the table, legal deeds, old letters, Maria Vega's will. They forged half of this, but not all. Someone helped them. Someone who knew the system. Reaper Miles entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You're not gonna like what we found out back." "What is it?" Reaper dropped a small black box on the table. This was buried behind the garage. Safe box, sealed and locked. Tiger's eyes narrowed. "Open it." Reaper snapped the lock with a screwdriver. Inside lay a flash drive, a worn leather diary, and a faded photograph, Maria standing beside her Harley, one hand resting protectively over her pregnant belly. Tiger's throat tightened. She hid this. Miguel reached for the diary with trembling fingers. That's her handwriting. Tiger nodded slowly. Then whatever's in here, it's what she wanted us to find. They gathered around as Tiger opened the diary. The first pages were filled with grease stains and half-finished sketches of engine parts, notes about road trips and memories of rides. But halfway through, the writing changed, shakier, faster. June 17th. Jack's been meeting with my brothers again. I told him not to trust them. They say they want to manage our finances, but I know better. Rick always had his eye on the property. I'm hiding the real will at the lawyer's office, just in case. If anything happens to me or Jack, Tiger will know what to do. He always does. Tiger exhaled slowly. She knew they'd try this. Michael's eyes were wide. You think they had something to do with the crash? Reaper crossed his arms. Wouldn't surprise me. Tiger flipped another page. The last entry was dated 2 days before Maria's death. Jack said the brakes felt off. I told him to take the truck to Tiger's garage tomorrow, but he said his brothers already fixed it. I don't like it. My gut's screaming something's wrong. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Michael's hand trembled as he traced the ink with his fingertips. She knew. Tiger's voice was quiet, filled with restrained fury. They cut the brakes. Reaper slammed a fist onto the table. Those bastards didn't just steal her house, they killed her. Michael's breathing quickened, his mind spinning. They murdered my parents. Tiger rested a steadying hand on his shoulder. And now the truth's out. Outside, the sun climbed higher. The bikers gathered near the front yard, listening as Tiger told them what they'd found. The anger was instant, sharp, righteous. Men who had sworn to live by the code of loyalty and honor clenched their fists, eyes burning behind dark glasses. Tiger raised his voice. Maria Vega didn't die in an accident. She was betrayed, by her own blood. But she's got new blood now. Ours. And her son will never carry that burden alone again. The roar that followed wasn't just noise. It was thunder, grief, and devotion wrapped into one. Reaper revved his engine, his voice booming over the sound. Then let's make sure the world knows what those men did. By noon, Darla Knox, the Hell Angels lawyer, arrived with a laptop. She connected the flash drive they'd found. Dozens of encrypted files appeared. Among them were digital scans of bank statements, letters, and police reports, all hidden by Maria before she died. Darla's eyes widened as she clicked through. This is huge. She kept everything, evidence of fraud, the brake report from the mechanic, even correspondence with the county prosecutor. She must have known they'd try to silence her. Tiger folded his arms. And they did. Darla turned the screen toward him. But now we have her voice. They spent hours compiling the evidence, contacting the sheriff's office and federal investigators. The case that had been buried under lies was finally breathing again. Miguel watched silently as the adults worked, the bikers turning into investigators, the clubhouse into a war room. For the first time, he understood what his mother meant when she said the road doesn't end when the engine stops. It just changes direction. When the last call was made and the final statement printed, Tiger found Miguel outside, sitting on the porch steps. The boy looked at the horizon, the same direction his parents had taken on their final ride. I can't believe they killed her, Miguel whispered. Their own sister. Tiger sat beside him, the wood creaking under his weight. Some people see blood and think it's ownership. Your mother saw it as loyalty. That's why she rode with us. She knew family isn't who you're born with, it's who you bleed for. Miguel looked at him. That's what you did for me. Tiger smiled faintly. No, kid. That's what she did. I'm just keeping the engine running. That evening, as the sun dipped below the ridge, a government car pulled into the driveway. Sheriff Collins stepped out, holding a folder. We got your call, he said to Tiger. Everything checks out. The FBI's taking over the case. Your uncles are being transferred tonight. Looks like they're facing murder charges. Michael's breath caught. So it's over? Collins nodded. It's justice, son. Might have taken years, but your mama's finally getting her piece. Tiger met his gaze. And her boy's getting his home. That night, the Hell Angels gathered around a bonfire outside the Vega house. The flames licked the desert air, sparks flying like falling stars. Miguel stood at the center, Maria's jacket wrapped around his shoulders, her diary in his hands. Tiger raised his glass. To Ironheart, the woman who never stopped fighting. 77 glasses lifted in the firelight. To Ironheart, they echoed, voices rising like thunder. The fire crackled, and for a moment, Tiger could swear he heard laughter in the wind. Her laughter, wild and free, carried through the sound of distant engines. Maria Vega was gone, but her spirit had never left the road. And her son, her legacy, was now surrounded by a family that would never let him fall again. The courthouse in Silverton hadn't seen this kind of crowd in years. News crews lined the steps, their cameras glinting in the desert sun. Reporters shouted questions as deputies escorted the three Vega brothers, Rick, Dennis, and Paul, through the doors in handcuffs. Inside, the air was electric. Every seat was filled. Curious townsfolk, old friends of Maria Vega, and even a few riders from rival clubs came to watch justice roll in. At the front sat Tiger Martins, dressed in a black suit and polished boots, his Hell Angels patch neatly folded away out of respect for the court. Beside him was Miguel Vega, wearing his mother's leather jacket, hands gripping his crutch. His face was pale but resolute. He wasn't just there for vengeance. He was there to reclaim his mother's name. The trial began with the dull rustle of papers and the steady voice of Darla Knox, the Hell Angels' lawyer. Calm but fierce, she presented everything they had uncovered: the forged will, the missing funds, the tampered brakes, the diary entries. Each page she read was a nail in the coffin of the Vega brothers' defense. When she projected Maria Vega's handwriting on the courtroom screen, people gasped. The words were simple, raw, and undeniable. "If anything happens to me or Jack, promise me Tiger will look after Miguel." Michael's chest tightened as he heard his mother's voice through her words. Tiger bowed his head, jaw clenched. Across the aisle, Rick tried to sneer, but his confidence had drained away. Sweat trickled down his temple. The weight of truth pressed against him harder than the cuffs around his wrists. The prosecution played the mechanic's report next, the one Maria had mentioned in her diary. It was clear, the brakes on her truck had been cut, not worn down. The signature authorizing the repair wasn't Jack Vega's. It was Rick's. The courtroom went dead silent. Even the judge, a stern man named Harold Bennett, removed his glasses and stared at the page for a long, heavy moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the full weight of the law. "Mr. Vega, do you deny authorizing this work?" Rick shifted in his chair, eyes darting. "It's not what it looks like." Bennett's gaze hardened. "It looks like intent, Mr. Vega." Darla wasn't done. She called witnesses, neighbors who'd heard the brothers arguing with Maria days before her death, a bank clerk who processed the suspicious withdrawals, even the sheriff who had dismissed the crash as an accident back then. Every testimony was another crack in the uncle's defense. But the moment that broke the room came when Miguel took the stand. He stood slowly, gripping his crutch, and made his way to the front. The courtroom watched in silence, cameras flashing, pens frozen mid-sentence. The bailiff helped him onto the witness chair. Miguel took a breath. Darla asked softly, "Miguel, can you tell the court what happened after your parents' funeral?" Miguel nodded. His voice was calm but carried the weight of years. "They told me to leave. Said I was worthless. That I was nothing but a burden." Rick muttered something under his breath, but a deputy silenced him with a glare. Miguel continued, "They threw my things out into the dirt. They told me I'd never make my parents proud because I couldn't even walk straight. But they were wrong." He turned, looking straight at the uncles. "My mother taught me that strength doesn't come from fists or money. It comes from loyalty. From people who stand by you when no one else will." He looked toward Tiger, who met his gaze with pride. Michael's voice softened. "I found that strength again, in people who never forgot her name." The judge nodded slowly, visibly moved. When the defense tried to fight back, it was too late. Their lawyer stammered through weak explanations about misunderstandings and clerical errors, but the evidence was overwhelming. By the second day, the entire courtroom knew what the verdict would be. As the final witness, a forensic expert, confirmed the brake tampering, the judge leaned back, the gavel heavy in his hand. He looked at the three brothers, then at the crowd, and said, "This court finds the defendants guilty of fraud, theft, and second-degree manslaughter in the deaths of Maria and Jack Vega. Gasps rippled through the room. Miguel exhaled sharply, tears spilling down his cheeks. Tiger reached over, resting a steady hand on his shoulder. "It's over, kid. She got her justice." Rick tried to stand, shouting curses at Tiger and the angels. Deputies dragged him down as the judge's gavel cracked through the noise. "Order. These men will serve no less than 25 years in state prison." Cheers erupted in the courtroom, not wild but righteous. People clapped. Some cried. For the first time, Maria Vega's name was spoken not as a rumor, but as vindication. After court adjourned, reporters swarmed the steps, but Tiger and Miguel walked through them in silence. The crowd parted as if instinctively recognizing something sacred, a bond beyond blood, beyond loss. At the bottom of the courthouse steps, the 77 Hell Angels were waiting, engines rumbling softly, forming a silent corridor of chrome and loyalty. Miguel stopped, staring at them in disbelief. Tiger looked down at him. "Your mom's brothers betrayed her blood. But these men..." He gestured to the riders. "They're her real family. And they just made the world remember who Ironheart Vega was." Reaper grinned from his bike. "And who her son is." The bikers erupted in cheers. "Ironheart's son." The chant grew louder, echoing through the streets until it drowned out the noise of the city itself. Miguel smiled through his tears. For the first time, he didn't feel broken. He felt seen. That night, they rode again, this time not for war, but for closure. The convoy of 77 bikes streamed across the desert highway under a burning sunset, the wind howling like the ghost of Maria Vega riding with them. Tiger led the way, Miguel in the sidecar, clutching his mother's diary. As they passed the open plains, Tiger shouted over the wind, "You ready to take the wheel, kid?" Miguel blinked, startled. "What?" Tiger grinned. "It's time you learned to ride." He slowed the bike, guiding Michael's hands to the handlebars. The boy hesitated, heart racing, then pressed forward gently. The bike wobbled, steadied, and rolled on. Tiger's voice was steady beside him. "There you go, Ironheart's son. The road's yours now." Under the dying light, 77 engines roared in unison, a hymn of redemption, of promises kept, of family reborn. Maria Vega's legacy had not died in that crash. It lived, thundering across the open desert, in the crippled boy who refused to break, and the Brotherhood that rode through fire to see him stand tall again. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, golden, fierce, alive. The roar of 77 engines echoed through the open sky, a sound that wasn't just movement, but memory. At the front of the convoy rode Tiger Martins, his black Harley glinting under the sun. Beside him, in the custom-built sidecar, sat Miguel Vega, wearing his mother's jacket and clutching the diary that had restored her honor. They had left the courthouse hours ago, but the ride felt like something more than distance. It was closure on wheels. The wind whipped through their hair, carrying dust, sunlight, and the spirit of a woman who had refused to die quietly. Maria Ironheart Vega might have been gone, but her legacy rode with them. As the convoy approached the outskirts of Silverton, townspeople stepped out of diners and shops waving. Children pointed, shouting in awe at the long line of roaring bikes. It wasn't fear in their eyes this time, it was respect. The Hell Angels weren't outlaws today. They were protectors. Guardians of loyalty. The story of the crippled boy and the promise kept had already begun to spread like wildfire. At the head of the column, Tiger slowed down. The other riders followed suit, forming a line that snaked toward the Vega property, once a house of grief, now a symbol of resurrection. The gate stood open, freshly painted with the words Ironheart's home. Michael's throat tightened. She'd love that, he whispered. Tiger smiled faintly. She'd probably yell at us for the font. That made the boy laugh, the first real laugh he'd given in years. They rolled into the yard, engines idling. The house looked different now. The fence was fixed, the porch clean, and the windows gleamed with sunlight. The place smelled of leather, oil, and renewal, the three scents that built every biker's life. Reaper Miles parked beside the garage and called out, "All right, boys, park her straight. This ain't chaos, this is sacred ground." The riders laughed, parking their Harleys in a perfect semicircle around the property. Tiger dismounted, stretching his back. "You did it, kid," he said to Miguel. "You got your home back." Miguel looked around, his voice soft. We did it. Tiger nodded slowly. Yeah, we. A few of the bikers started unloading boxes from their trucks, repairs, tools, and food donations from nearby towns. Some of them had never met Maria Vega in life, but all of them knew what she stood for. A biker named Torch walked up to Miguel, holding a small box wrapped in faded leather. Your mom left this with the club years ago, he said. Said we were to give it to you when the time was right. Miguel took the box, hands trembling. Inside was a patch, a black circle embroidered with wings and fire, smaller than the Hell Angel's emblem but unmistakable. Beneath it were 3 words, Ironheart Riders. Tiger smiled. She made her own patch. Said one day her son would wear it. Michael's eyes glistened. I don't know what to say. Reaper chuckled. You don't gotta say anything, boy. Just ride. That evening, as the sun melted into crimson and gold, the riders gathered for one final moment. A bonfire roared in the middle of the yard, flames licking the sky. The sound of laughter, engines, and country rock filled the air. Tiger stood before the group, holding a glass of whiskey. To Maria Vega, he began. To Ironheart, who never rode for glory, but for love. Who never let fear outrun her courage. And who taught us all that family isn't born, it's built. The men raised their glasses in unison. To Ironheart. The desert echoed with their voices. Miguel sat quietly beside the fire, his mother's diary in his lap. He flipped to the last page, the one she'd never finished writing. There was only a single half-written sentence. No matter what happens, the road always. He took a pen from Tiger's vest pocket and finished it. Leads you home. Tiger watched him write, then looked away toward the fire, his eyes glinting. She'd be proud of you. Miguel smiled. You think so? Tiger nodded. I don't think I know. Later that night, as the fire burned low, Tiger led Miguel to the garage. Inside sat a gleaming Harley-Davidson, matte black, trimmed with silver, the initials MV carved into the gas tank. Miguel froze. That's your mother's bike, Tiger said. We rebuilt it. Took months. Runs like she never stopped riding. Miguel ran his hand along the handlebars. It's beautiful. Tiger grinned. It's yours. The boy hesitated. But I can't. Can't what? Tiger interrupted. Ride. You rode beside me just fine. The road doesn't care how fast you go. It only cares that you keep moving. Michael's throat tightened. He swung a leg over the bike, awkwardly, carefully. The machine seemed to hum beneath him, as if recognizing its new rider. Tiger placed his hand on Michael's shoulder. Ready. The boy nodded. Tiger smiled. Then light her up. Miguel turned the key. The Harley roared to life, deep, thunderous, alive. The firelight caught on his mother's initials, glowing like a heartbeat. The bikers outside turned at the sound, grinning and cheering. Look who's riding now. Reaper bellowed. Tiger laughed, raising his glass again. Ironheart's son. The chant rose once more, echoing into the desert night. They rode one final lap around the property, Tiger leading, Miguel behind him, and 75 riders forming a glowing ring of headlights around the Vega home. As the stars shimmered overhead, Tiger slowed his bike beside the boy and shouted over the engines. This is what family looks like, Miguel. Not blood, loyalty. Promise. Brotherhood. Miguel grinned through tears. Then I guess I'm home. The engines roared louder, a symphony of thunder under a sky that had watched too much silence. By the time dawn touched the desert again, the Hell Angels began to ride out one by one, each leaving a mark of respect, a coin on the porch, a rose by the gate, a salute toward the rising sun. Tiger stayed behind with Miguel. He looked at the boy, at the house, at the open road ahead. You don't owe me anything, Tiger said quietly. But if you ever need us, you call and we ride. Miguel nodded, voice thick with emotion. You kept your promise. Tiger gave a small smile. And you kept hers. He turned, mounted his bike, and started the engine. Miguel stood in the yard, watching the 77 Hell Angels thunder away into the sunrise, a trail of fire and loyalty disappearing into gold. He whispered into the wind. Thanks, Mom. I'm home now. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that loyalty, love, and promises still mean something in this world, tell us in the comments what you would have done if you were in Tiger's shoes. Would you ride to protect the son of your best friend?